The auctioneer opened the bidding on 400 acres of charred Colorado ranch land, and the room didn't even pretend to be interested.
Nobody else sees it. That's fine, I do.
The starting bid was so low, it should have been an insult to the land, but two previous owners had already walked away from the ashes.
You sure you can afford the shovel to clean it up, sweetheart?
Laughter rippled through the hall, but Brenda didn't flinch. She lifted her paddle one more time. The gavel came down. Sold. To the only person in the room willing to pay $44,000 for a graveyard of trees.
You just bought 400 acres of ashes, sweetheart. You are the Ash Widow now.
Call me whatever you want. I've heard worse.
She signed her name on the deed and walked out into the cold afternoon, the keys to a wasteland heavy in her pocket. 400 acres of blackened earth and skeleton trees. And beneath the ashes, something no one else had bothered to look for. Brenda drove the old pickup through the broken gate, towing a single-wide trailer, an ash cloud boiling behind her.
Nobody to help me unload this thing. Fine. I have done harder things alone.
She unhitched the trailer on a flat patch of charred ground and stood in the silence, the only sound the wind through dead timber.
You really plan to live here? In that tin can?
Ignore him. He wants a reaction.
You won't last one season. This land eats people.
She did not answer. She kept walking, boots sinking into the soot, until he wheeled his horse and rode away laughing. That night, inside the trailer, a single lamp threw shadows on the walls. Brenda stared out the window at the black expanse.
$44,000. Everything I have left.
Somewhere out there, under the ashes, was the reason she had come. She just had to survive long enough to find it. She started at dawn, dragging charred timber off the foundation of the old homestead, her hands blackening within an hour.
This land owes me something. I intend to collect.
In town, the name she'd been given at the auction became her permanent title, the Ash Widow. Raymond stood in the bank lobby a few days later, voice pitched low so everyone could hear.
You mark my words. She'll be out of money and out of that trailer before the first snow.
The bank manager listened, nodded, and made a note on a file already too thin. Brenda knew nothing of the bank's new interest. She was too busy pulling nails and dragging wire, her palms raw under the gloves.
If my hands fail, I'll use my teeth.
Evening came without warning. She found herself sitting on the rim of the old stone well, staring at the charred soil beneath her feet. 100 years of secrets were sleeping down there. She could almost feel them. The next morning, she returned to the old homestead foundation, a metal rod in her hand, testing the packed earth where the floor had been.
Wait, that was hollow.
She dropped to her knees and began scooping away ash and charred soil with both hands. Ignoring the splinters, inches down, her fingers struck solid iron, a flat lid, crusted with rust. She dug around the edges until she could grip it, then pulled a heavy iron strongbox free of the earth that had hidden it for more than a century. A quarter-mile east, Raymond lowered his binoculars. He had been watching all morning, and whatever she just pulled from the ground, he didn't like it. She carried the lockbox back to the trailer, like it was made of glass, set it on the folding table, and stared at it in the bare lamplight.
What are you hiding in there?
The iron was cold, the hasp rusted shut. But Brenda had learned a long time ago that the things most people ignore are the things that change everything. Tomorrow, that box would be open, and nothing would be the same. At sunrise, Brenda wedged the crowbar into the lockbox's rusted hasp.
You've been waiting a long time. Let's see what you are hiding.
The hasp snapped with a crack. Inside, the dry smell of iron and old paper. She broke the red wax seal and unrolled yellowed parchment. The ink faded but still sharp.
Federal mining claim, dated September 1898. Subsurface mineral rights to the bearer and signs.
A glass vial tumbled out, clouded with age. She wiped it, and the ore inside glittered like trapped stars.
This isn't gold. It's something else entirely.
The document listed coordinates, a geological survey, and a signature from 1898. It was all still there.
This piece of paper gives me rights to whatever is down there.
She set the vial next to the parchment and exhaled. The Ash Widow had found her inheritance. Brenda drove to the public library in town, sat down at a dusty computer, and typed the claim's coordinates into the search bar.
Lithium. High grade. Battery revolution. This isn't just a vein. It's a strategic reserve.
She spent the next hour cross-referencing the old geological survey with modern maps at the county records office.
The forgotten seam cuts right under my land. I am calling about a federal mining claim from 1898, filed under the original homestead. Is it still valid?
The county clerk confirmed it, renewed continuously, transferred with the deed, and never contested.
That seam might be worth more than 100 ranches.
She locked the parchment in the trailer's only safe, a small fireproof box, and slid the key into her vest pocket.
This deed is now a target, and I am standing in the center of it.
She had bought ashes and found a fortune. But fortunes attract wolves. The dust cloud from Raymond's truck announced him before the engine cut off.
Open this door, Ash Widow. I know you found something.
He's been watching. Stay calm.
She opened the door, but stood in the gap, one hand on the frame, blocking his view inside.
Whatever you pulled from that foundation, I want to see it.
You've seen this place. There's nothing here but charcoal and ghosts.
Then let me buy your problem. 50,000 cash. More than that scorched dirt is worth.
Not for sale. Not for 50,000. Not for 1,000,000.
You'll regret that. Land like this has a way of turning on people who don't cooperate.
He got back in his truck and roared off, leaving Brenda standing in the ash, her secret still safe, but her heart pounding. The black SUV arrived 2 days later, rolling through the charred gate like it owned the place. The man who stepped out was all silver hair and tailored suit, a kind of polished power that didn't belong in Ash.
Richard Harmon, Aurora Lithium, my legal counsel, Miles Langston. We'd like a moment of your time. We understand you've come into possession of an old mining claim. We're prepared to take it off your hands, generously.
$2 million, full buyout of subsurface rights. That's more money than most people see in a lifetime, Miss Callahan.
2 million. That's 50 times what I paid. But if they're offering this fast, it's worth 10 times more. That's a substantial offer. I'll need to review it carefully.
Don't take too long, Miss Callahan. Deals like this have a way of expiring.
They left the contract on the table, their business cards beside it, and drove away with a cloud of dust. Brenda watched them go, the deal heavy in her hand, and added 2 more names to the list of people who thought she was easy to buy. Brenda returned to the county archives the next morning, requesting every file related to Aurora Lithium's activities in the district. She found a thick folder of correspondence between Harmon and the ranch's previous owner, dated almost a decade back. One letter mentioned a local contact who could keep the property unattractive until we're ready to move.
Raymond Barlow. The local contact is Raymond.
She pulled another file, a signed agreement between Raymond and Aurora Lithium, paying him a monthly retainer for property intelligence.
He wasn't just bullying me. He was hurting me.
She copied every page, her jaw tight, the machine light flashing like a heartbeat. That night, her trailer table became a war room, the claim, the ore sample, and now the proof of a 10-year conspiracy.
Aurora Lithium spent 10 years trying to grab this land. Raymond was their inside man, and now I hold all the cards.
The Ash Widow wasn't just lucky. She was now the most dangerous person in the valley. The attorney's report sat on her laptop, 100 pages of legalese that boiled down to 6 words. The claim is unbreakable.
Unbreakable. That's the word I needed.
She pulled up market data and began calculating what an 18% royalty on a lithium seam this size would actually look like.
18%. Not 1 point less.
She placed the glass vial of ore next to the pad, its glitter a reminder of what was at stake. Night came, and she was still at the table, drafting a document of her own. a counteroffer built on data, not desperation.
They think they can buy me out cheap. They have no idea what's coming.
She worked until the window showed the first gray light, then set her pen down on a finished strategy.
I've got the law, the numbers, and the truth. Let them come.
The Ash Widow had been planning. Now she would act. The black SUV returned, but this time a familiar dusty pickup followed close behind it. Raymond climbed out wearing a smirk, his role in the ambush written all over his face.
Miss Callahan, I believe we've been negotiating in the dark. Let's clear the air.
You mean negotiating with a woman you assumed was ignorant, but I know exactly what you've been doing for the past 10 years.
This isn't a trial. We're here to reach a mutually beneficial agreement, not rehash ancient history.
Ancient history. Then explain why my file has letters from Richard Harmon to the previous owner, with a line item for local resources, by name.
You little.
Enough. You've done your homework. I see. What exactly are you proposing?
Not a proposal. A reality. 18% royalty, 60% conservation easement, and Raymond Barlow never sets foot on this land again.
Silence filled the trailer. For the first time, Richard Harmon looked at Brenda as if she were the one holding the contracts. Harmon reached into his jacket and slid a check across the table. $4 million.
Take it and get lost, Ash Widow. More than you'll ever earn.
Brenda didn't touch the check. She pushed it back toward Harmon with the tip of one finger.
I didn't ask for a number. I gave you conditions.
She held up 3 fingers, counting off each point.
18% royalty on every ton extracted, 60% of the surface under a conservation easement. And one more thing, Raymond Barlow is permanently barred from grazing or benefiting from this land. In writing, forever.
Raymond's face went from red to purple. The veins in his neck stood out. Langston stared at his pen, as if it had stopped writing on its own. Harmon didn't move. The check lay on the table between them, untouched. Brenda had just made the land worth nothing to them unless they met her terms. Harmon stood first, buttoning his jacket with sharp, controlled movements. Langston followed, his face unreadable.
This isn't over. I'll bury you in court costs before I let you steal my grazing rights.
He's scared. That's the only reason he's still talking.
The vehicles roared off, leaving a plume of ash in their wake. Brenda exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. She went back inside, picked up her phone, and dialed a number she'd saved from the Conservation Group's website.
I may have a deal that protects 60% of Callahan Creek as a wildlife corridor. Can your organization back me?
The voice on the other end promised expert testimony, legal amicus briefs, and a public campaign if needed.
Now, I don't just have a case. I have an army.
She spent the night with a highlighter, marking precedents that turned mining law on its head.
They'll be back. They need this lithium more than I need their check.
The registered letter arrived with Langston's firm's letterhead, thick with threats of injunction and financial liability.
They think paper can scare me, but I've already been through fire.
2 hours later, her phone rang. The bank manager's voice was flat. The loan committee has voted to call your $44,000 note due immediately.
Of course. They own the bank, too.
When she stepped outside, the tractor sat in the yard with both rear tires slashed, ragged gashes tearing the rubber. A quarter mile down the road, Raymond's pickup idled. He lifted his hand in a slow, mocking wave.
He wants me to see it. He's enjoying this.
She went back inside and sat in the dim trailer, head in her hands, the weight of the fight pressing down on her like a second roof.
Maybe I should just take the money, walk away. No one would blame me.
Then she lifted her head and looked at the yellowed parchment pinned to the wall, the 1898 claim, the red wax seal, and something cold and stubborn straightened her spine. Before the sun rose, she called every local station and told them to bring their cameras to the ranch. By 10, a dozen reporters in a knot of conservationists stood in the ash before her trailer, microphones bristling.
This is an 1898 federal mining claim. It gives me rights to a high-grade lithium seam that Aurora Lithium has been chasing for a decade. They offered me 2 million, then 4, then threatened to bankrupt me. Their local spy, Raymond Barlow, slashed my tires. I have the documents to prove it all.
In his glass-walled office, Richard Harmon watched the news feed, his knuckles turning white on the armrest. Miles Langston stood beside him, phone lit up with calls from the board, investors, and legal. The clip went viral within hours. The hashtag Ash Widow trended alongside lithium rights and corporate bullying.
I won't be bullied. Not by Raymond, and not by a corporation. This land is mine and I will protect it.
By nightfall, Aurora Lithium's PR team was on damage control, and Brenda Callahan had just made herself untouchable. The following morning, Richard Harmon faced a screen full of furious shareholders, their voices overlapping in a digital storm.
The board is spooked. The stock dipped 8 points overnight. We have to deal with her.
I know. Draft a message. Tell her we'll discuss her conditions and keep Raymond out of it.
Langston composed an email with careful language. Aurora Lithium is prepared to resume negotiations based on your stated terms. Brenda was in the trailer when her phone lit up with the company's logo.
They blinked, just like I knew they would.
She read the message twice, then set the phone down without replying. No rush. A calm, almost imperceptible smile crossed her soot-streaked face.
My terms haven't changed. They never will.
She poured herself a cup of coffee and waited for the next move, knowing it would be exactly the one she had designed. In the sterile conference room, Brenda faced Harmon and Langston across a table covered with maps and clauses.
15% royalty. That's generous, given your initial investment. Final offer.
18, not a number less. You've been chasing this seam for 10 years.
The conservation easement cuts extractable area by 60%. You have to give on something.
The easement stays. So does the clause, barring Raymond Barlow permanently. Those are my terms.
Harmon leaned back, his face a mask. He exchanged a glance with Langston, who gave a weary shrug.
All right. You win. 18%. The easement. The exclusion. We'll draft the contract.
He gestured toward Langston, who began typing into his laptop. Prepare final documents per plaintiff's stated terms.
Don't celebrate. Wait for the ink.
The Ash Widow had bent a titan, but she would not rest until the paper was signed and the ink was dry. The contract arrived on heavy paper, every clause triple-checked by Langston's firm. Brenda took it and sat alone, reading every word for an hour while the lawyers waited.
No hidden traps. They finally learned.
The door slammed open. Raymond, red-faced and wild-eyed, stormed in before security could stop him.
You can't do this. That's my grazing land. My deal.
You were paid. The deal is done. Escort him out.
Raymond was dragged from the room, his curses fading down the hallway. Brenda picked up the pen and signed her name without hesitation. Then Harmon, then Langston. Handshakes were cold, but the cameras caught them. The Ash Widow had won. She took her copy, slid it into her vest, and walked out into the sun, leaving the corporation to count its losses. Within a week, the newspaper headline blared, Ash Widow strikes lithium fortune. The article painted Brenda as a folk hero. A local television station interviewed her in the trailer, the yellowed parchment framed behind her.
I didn't do it for the money. I did it because this land deserves a second chance.
Her first royalty check arrived not long after. She held it, looked at the number, and laughed for the first time in months. With that check, she paid off the bank, bought new tires, and hired a crew to lay the foundation for a new barn. Trucks rolled in, hauling lumber and livestock. The charred valley rang with hammers and men calling orders.
I want the best grass-fed herd this side of the Rockies, and I'll be picking the calves myself.
She stood on the porch of the half-finished barn, watching the cattle unload. The ash was now just a memory under fresh green shoots. The community, once so cold, began to stop by. They brought casseroles and curiosity. The Ash Widow had become the valley's most unlikely queen, and she was just getting started. The conservation easement signs went up along 60% of the property, marking a wildlife corridor that no machine could touch. The old stone well, Once dark and dry, now gurgled with clear water, a vein rediscovered beneath the ash.
The land remembers. And so do I.
Her cattle grazed on restored native grasses, their hides gleaming in the sun. The mining entrance was a discreet opening in the hillside, screened by newly planted pine, its operation barely a whisper. Across the boundary fence, Raymond's land was dry and overgrazed. He watched like a man who had already lost.
Should have bought it when I had the chance.
In town, people crossed the street when they saw him coming. His name had become poison. Brenda rode a bay mare along the fence line, checking the herd, the contract a permanent weight in her saddlebag. The Ash Widow had turned a disaster into a dynasty, and no one in the valley could deny it now. The new wooden sign read Callahan Creek Ranch. Brenda cut the ribbon with the same shears she had used to prune the first green shoots. A barbecue pit smoked behind the new barn, and neighbors who had once crossed the street now filled the yard with laughter.
To second chances, for the land, the cattle, and every doubter who made me work harder.
The crowd raised their glasses and laughed, the sound rolling out across the valley. When the laughter settled, Brenda walked inside the new ranch house and stood before the window. On the sill rested the framed 1898 mining claim and the glass vial of ore, catching the last gold of the day.
Under the ashes,
She looked out at the valley, green from end to end, cattle grazing where the charred skeletons once stood. It had cost her everything, but she had bought back more than land. Outside, someone called her name, and she smiled, setting the frame down before stepping back into the evening. The morning after the celebration, Brenda walked alone through the tall grass, the dew soaking her boots. She passed the old stone well, now pouring clear water into a trough, the sound a quiet music. She knelt where the ash had been deepest, and touched a cluster of wildflowers that had pushed through anyway. From her vest pocket, she pulled the glass vial that had started everything, the ore glittering like a captured galaxy. She held it to the light for a long moment, then tucked it away, the weight now familiar. She walked on, the grass parting before her, and the land stretched green in every direction. The valley that had been a graveyard of trees was now a mosaic of pasture, water, and forest. She stopped on a low rise and let the wind push against her, carrying the scent of grass and cattle. Then she kept going, toward the cattle and the morning, with no need to look back. Under the ashes,